Holy cow, guys! This is the 21st Culture of Splife podcast. We had some technical difficulties on another site, so we're hopping over here to TikTok Live. So this is being recorded live on TikTok. If you are not following us on Facebook, we're still at Culture of Splife on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, of course, TikTok. So I am going to get the guys on here now. All right, welcome, gentlemen. I'll remember how to get you guys going on the camera here. Just give me 1 second. All right, y'all should have camera access.
Man, I was being rejected like I had a bad credit score on Facebook.
I know.
I mean, if it had went any longer with me not being able to get on, I was going to think I needed to get somebody to co-sign with me to get in there.
Right. Call up your BFF and make sure they're guaranteeing that you're
Take
able
us
to
back to the YP days. I was going to have to go ahead and put 12 months up front to get on the podcast live.
Absolutely.
I was thinking if this didn't work, we were going to try MySpace.
Yeah, that was my next go-to move. Hey guys, let's dust off the MySpace pages.
Right.
And let's get on there. So guys, you know, we are getting more professional in our approach to our podcast after feedback from listeners and homeless people we find on the street and forced to listen to our podcast. And you know, we were timing things on our outline, and we're already 5 minutes past our first segment. So we got to catch some ground to catch up, I guess. Of course, no one knows where we're as popular as Facebook, as popular as Facebook, and I just somehow think that we weren't meant to do a podcast tonight. So for those listening later, it just kicked my cohorts out for no good reason. No reason at all. It just kicked them out. There's absolutely no reason that they went away, but both of them went away simultaneously. So let's see here if I can get them back in. All right, here we go. Let's add some guests. Add some guests to the podcast here. We're adding some guests. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, hey. I had somebody on standby that was going to be a co-signer with me.
You still need it on TikTok, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I'm not even normally when I'm in these TikTok lives, the chat's going crazy. I'm just overly distracted and I press a button and screw something up. I wasn't even pressing anything at that point. It was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, why don't we get some Uncle Joe's trivia started before we lose this? So, Josh, explain to us what Uncle Joe's trivia is.
Uncle Joe's trivia just kind of stuck. Right, we used to have a trivia segment on the show, and it was just kind of blah. This is the trivia segment. So I thought of my, call it uncle-in-law, who would always pull me aside at Thanksgiving dinner and ask me a trivia question. And his name is Uncle Joe. So it was perfect. I asked for his permission to use him. And said that I would split proceeds with him when we got to that point. So he's not listening because he's sound asleep. But yeah, it just kind of stuck. So I ask 2 questions every week, and then I give the answers to those questions at the end of the show. So I got the first one. You know, since we are talking NBA quite a bit, you know, the playoffs are going on, and I know there's a game going on right now, which of course I have DVR'd, so I'll be watching in its entirety unless it's a blowout.
Oh, we're going to talk about that.
Definitely we'll be talking about that later on for sure. But LeBron James is playing in his 12th conference finals. 12th. That's with Eastern and Western Conference. 12. He is 10-1 going into this series against the Nuggets. Who was the only team that LeBron lost to in the conference finals?
This will be a good one.
Yeah, the chat's going to blow up here in just a second. It's already going nuts. I don't know if you guys are seeing it, but
We are.
we'll see. There was over.
Miami Nuggets.
don't
DVR legally blonde. What?
I don't know that that's the right answer. All right, let's go on to to trivia question number 2.
So
That was
the
a Celebrity
second
Jeopardy
question,
answer right there.
You know, obviously we've been talking about the NFL quite a bit with the draft and all the crazy things that we saw by the Packers' father and the girlfriend. So I came up with an NFL question, and that is every NFL team, every single one, has had a 4,000-yard passer except one. Name that team that has never had a quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards.
Did you send us that one pregame?
Yes.
I sent it last week sometime.
Okay, because it's funny because I saw it and I was like, I should send that. And so it's a good thing I didn't. Oh, we have some answers.
Yes. Christopher John threw away his Miami Nuggets and came through with the Bears.
Wow.
What a guess. We shall see. We'll find out at the end of the show.
Stick around to see if that's right.
That's right.
I mean, if you stay the entirety of the show, you could just actually guess all 32 teams, so you technically wouldn't be wrong.
That's true.
So we'll find out together. How's it going, Shamar? All right. I'm getting too distracted. There's a lot more going on TikTok than there is on Facebook. I'm just saying. Anytime we have TikTok lives, it derails our actual podcast that we're recording, and I'm just ADD. At least I haven't broke out the filters yet. I haven't broke out the filters. I'll be looking like a dog here in a minute. So the first thing we want to talk about tonight is the most obvious, right, that we've got to talk about. If you're watching the NBA and NBA finals, or if you're, just looking up clips on social media and seeing what's really cool and trending like I do. Yeah, that just happened. All right. So, thank you, by the way. But let's talk about Jayson Tatum and 51 points.
Yep.
Is that accurate? So, Rod, tell us all about it.
Well, first off, 51 points is a game high for a game 7 right there. Most points scored in a game 7, which is kind of crazy that 2 weeks ago, Steph Curry had the most points scored in a game 7 with 50. And so Tatum had to go ahead and one up him there and do so in a series to go into the conference finals and of course do that, which is what's also crazy about that is just the fact that he struggled so bad in several games in this series. I mean, there were games where it's like the fourth quarters when he finally decided to make a basket, and he turned it on when he needed to. And so I think that for Jayson Tatum right now, especially coming off the way he ended last year's final so badly, there's always that question now as is he that guy that's going to be able to take the next step? And those questions got louder and louder when he struggled early on in this 76ers series. I think he's starting to answer those questions here now. And I think he's one of those guys that if he finally gets over the hump here this season, you're going to see him go to a whole nother level of superstardom.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, I was watching that game. I was watching Game 6, and I was with a buddy at a Barons game, in fact. And I said to him, with 6.5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, I said, "Watch this. Jayson Tatum's about to take over this game, and the Celtics will win." He went
He
on to
said
make
that.
his next three-pointers, and I think he went from having 6 points in the game. He finished with like 18 or something like
Mhm.
that. And all of it was in the last, I mean, call it basically in a 5 minute span because the game was out of reach with a minute left. I think the Sixers were up, or the Celtics were up by like 9 points. So, Jason's just one of those dogs. I mean, it doesn't matter if he's missed 15 shots, it's still going up, and the next one's going to go in. And I mean, just he's got that Kobe Bryant in him. He really does. I know that was his biggest role model when he came into the NBA, and he really tries to mirror his game after him, but he's just got that killer instinct. And
He proved,
humbly, I'm one of
yeah,
the
he
best
proved
players
that
in
in
the
the All Star
NBA. That's
game
what he
as
told
well.
us.
When I mean, it was like a 30-point quarter. It was like nothing for him to put it up. So he's that guy. You're right.
He is.
What's crazy to me though about the dude, he's got the Mamba energy. We just had a comment for that one. That's for sure. But what's crazy to me about the talking heads is the fact that there was doubt that he was great before, and they're saying, oh, he scored 51 points. Now it's cemented. He's going to be awesome. This is a guy that's a 4-time All-Star. And last time I checked, being an All-Star was a pretty good thing, much less to do it 4 times. And people were questioning whether or not he was good. And now that he's got one good game, all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, he's good. He's a good guy. He's going to be up there with the greats, And it's like, no, he probably would have been anyway. 38 points that game. He still would have been all right.
He was the All Star MVP this year, and didn't he break the scoring record in the All
I
Star
think he
game?
scored 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like we're very much an ADD society right now.
That's
So,
right. But in that
yeah, like
game seven, he was heat checking, and
yes,
they were nothing but nylon. I was like, what is going on? Normally you'll hit back rim or something, but every one. I mean, it was just like watching Quinterly in the Alabama-Maryland game at the BJCC.
yeah.
When he would take those threes, you knew they were money. I mean, it looked like Steph Curry shooting. Every
He was
single one
flamethrowing.
dropped. Amazing performance.
Or did it look like Jayson Tatum shooting? Maybe that's what we're going to be saying in a few weeks, comparing everybody to him. That's
Yeah.
that's
So
Possibly.
when you do things that great, you become the catchphrase.
That's right.
right. You become that Mamba energy or whatever his thing will be.
I think we could wrap that up by saying he's him.
yeah,
right.
he's him. He
right.
is him.
No doubt. So after that performance, we found out that Doc Rivers got canned, right? So
He's not him.
he is not him, and he has not been him in a game 7. He's 6-10 in game 7s as an NBA coach.
But okay. So I'm gonna come to Doc Rivers' defense because you guys know
Yes.
how I feel about this subject. 6-10 in game 7 means that you have been to 16 game 7s,
Correct.
which is a feat. That there are 16 teams that don't even get that opportunity to even think about. They're not even
Yes.
considering a game 7. They're considering what are we going to do next year, right? Much less a game 7 this deep into things. So, like you should, to me, if all things are fair and all things are equal, you should be at best 8-8 in that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. Because if all teams are fair, all teams are equal, that should be the scenario. Is that you're 8-10? But let's consider another thing. The playoffs are the best of the best, right?
Correct.
So that means that you're never, if all things are fair and equal,
Mhm.
You're never always going to be the best. So your record should probably be like about what, 6-10?
Yeah, I mean something like that, or around 500. And I think you're exactly right on that, Drew. For the simple fact that you know this has been a crazy off season slash. Well, for some teams now it's an off season, but this playoff season because you've had Doc Rivers, and then you've had Nick Nurse, you've had Monty Williams from Phoenix, you've had Budenholzer from the Bucks. And so, like, these are literally half of the NBA's top 10 have fired their coaches because they didn't make the title game, basically. And to your point, the Sixers and Celtics, that was basically an NBA Finals that just happened to be played the second round because that's where they matched up on that side. And to Doc's point, yes, this was one of them where they felt like they needed to win, but they weren't even the favorites to win the series.
Right.
I mean, and if anybody follows Doc Rivers' track record over time, the majority of those 16 game sevens, he had a team that overachieved to be in that game seven, right? There may be 4 or 5 of those 16 games where he had the better team and should have won, and maybe a couple of times he did, especially with Boston. But then there were other times where, I mean, it was like that was a great coaching job to get that team into a seventh game against whoever they were going against.
Right.
So, I think it really goes into just what we've talked about, especially pregame. We were talking about it too, in that we have just such this microwave mentality in society, and we don't even understand that only one team is going to be happy with the NBA season, right? There can only be 2 teams to get to a championship game, which means 30 teams don't make it, which is what 95% of the NBA won't be in the championship game. So are we going to just fire every coach? Then what happens?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what happens, and it's the most mind-numbing thing is you're an NBA coach, right? There's 32 of them. You count some assistants. We're talking less than 100 folks here that get to be considered an NBA coach, right? What are you going to do? Find somebody at the better level?
Yeah.
Like there's not a better level. I mean, you could import somebody from a different country that is better, that didn't have the resources, but you're taking a huge risk to do that. Okay, first off. And second, we don't truly know anything about that track record. So all they're going to do is have this big swap meet at the end of the year and say, okay, well, we fired you and we're going to give you tons of extra money. It's not cheap to fire a coach, by the way. They're giving these guys money to leave their jobs. And then what do? They sit out for a season or two and get hired by the next team.
Yes.
Some of them don't even get that opportunity. They just get straight up hired by the next team.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, there's already talk about Monty Williams being the coach of the Sixers. He's one of the 5 candidates that I saw. So
right.
And he just got canned. And I mean, the dude was in the NBA Finals 2 years ago, and he is always at least a top 4 seed in the West, which has been ridiculously hard.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, what are you gonna,
and
it's
you know,
crazy.
talking about Philly, they've done an awful job in the draft.
Yes.
Right? Besides Embiid and Maxey, who have they drafted that is still on that team in the last 6-7 years?
I mean,
They
major
drafted
crash and burn.
Markelle Fultz instead of Tatum.
That was
They drafted
terrible.
Ben Simmons. They drafted Nerlens Noel.
Yep.
They drafted the big from Duke. Remember, like 3 years in a row, they drafted.
Yeah, I know what
center.
you're talking about. Yep.
And luckily, Embiid's turned out to be one of the best. Well, obviously the MVP this year. Man, I can't think of that guy's name to save my life. And that
Jaleel
adds to my point.
Wasn't
That
it
adds to
Jaleel?
my point. Jaleel, yes.
Jaleel Okafor.
Okafor, that's right. That's right. Exactly. Yeah, I
He's
had
basically a
a
Sam Booth.
Mecca in my head, but I didn't know why. But that's why.
What's weird to me about that though is you're not going to draft a player. So what are you doing to win games? You're firing your coach, which means you're bringing in somebody else that's developed players somewhere, right? And then you're going to bring in some players that somebody else developed. You're never going to develop a system,
No.
right? Or as people like to call it after history's been made, a dynasty, right? It's always going to be a piecemealed thing. I mean, it almost is reminiscent of the praise that Billy Beane got for the Oakland
Yeah.
A's. Right? And like, oh, it was genius. He got this guy to do this and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what did the Oakland A's do though? I don't remember. Not win championships. That's what they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got somewhere, and it was cheap. But like, what do you get? A movie that you can watch about it? Like that's all that ended from Billy Beanball was Jose Canseco admitting that he did steroids and now Oakland's going to LA or Las Vegas rather. Like that's the final nail in the coffin for that nonsense. And this is the problem, one of the many problems with the NBA, right? Is you're never going to have those dynasties develop. You'll never have the rivalries develop. Sorry, had a comment that said they could draft Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Because he's the savior for everything in Las Vegas. He'll play for the A's too. He'll be out there. He'll be their starting pitcher, and he'll get hurt midway through the season with a broken ankle. That's what's going to happen. Sorry, got distracted. Off my soapbox now. I'll let you guys talk for a second.
Maybe he'll
So, I
also
mean-
overthrow the catcher quite a bit.
I know we're talking a lot about the NBA playoffs, but is anybody watching the NBA playoffs?
No, they're
I
not.
mean, how are y'all finding out all of these things that happened in these playoff games? Are you,
You know,
watching
that's
the
a fair
game in their
question.
That's a
entirety
very
like you did
good-
in the 90s?
That's a fair question for not just us, but anybody that wants to comment down in the chat or comment if you're listening in syndication elsewhere. How are you watching the NBA playoffs? Because I'll be honest, I haven't watched an NBA playoff since about 1998. That was the last time I watched an NBA playoff. Because at that point in time, I could connect to AOL and get my little dial-up internet modem out, and it was right there on my homepage. And ever since then, I've not had to watch the tragedy that is the NBA, because it's been, you know, it's been Twitter, right? I can see all the good plays on Twitter,
Exactly.
right? If I don't do it there, it's just going to pop up on Google, right? It just serves it up to me.
Or
guess
any
what?
kind of alert from any apps that you have on your phone. So that's the crazy point that you make is you don't actually have to watch any game live, and you're just as informed as anybody that watched it live. So that kind of brings up a lot of things that we're looking at here now. Is it a case, and I pose this question to you two as well as everybody that's listening, has the media fragmentation or just the easy access to anything at our fingertips really hurt the ability of the NBA and really several sports, but we're talking about the NBA right now, to really be able to thrive from a rating standpoint or to really have that attraction? Now, like you said, there's the rivalries. We're firing like top 4 coaches every 15 minutes. Those are things that hurt it too. But is this a legitimate question as well as to how fragmented and how microwave everything is in our society also hurting it?
Go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, there's a lot to take in that point. Personally, I don't like it, but it's because I'm old and I get upset about things changing. You know, how dare me not be able to watch, every playoff game on regular TV and adjust my antenna and make my kids get up and change the channel for me whenever I need to see the next
Full paper on the
NBA
rabbit
game.
ears.
Right. You know, and And part of that truly is because I am old, but it's also to your point, we're a microwave society. And what, if you don't know what he means by that, if you're one of the younger people that are part of this microwave society, we obviously don't even want to wait on our food anymore. We microwave it to heat it up. It has to be that fast. And, what it gets tough for in media fragmentation, and this is coming from somebody that's personally, I have a brand that I market as well as a podcast. And all three of us have marketing backgrounds. What it gets hard for is for us to prove that any kind of marketing is working, right? Mm-hmm. And so we look at it and say, people aren't watching the NBA, right? But I'm gonna almost play a little bit of devil's advocate here and say more people are watching the NBA now that wouldn't be watching it because of the media fragmentation. I see a short about the NBA or a TikTok or whatever, I'm scrolling through and I watch it, right? How many views have we had on our podcast? I'm going to ask you guys that. How many views have we had on our podcast?
For what?
What do you tell people how many views we've had on our podcast?
4 million.
4 million, yeah. Right? And that's an accurate. It may be 5 now. I haven't actually sat down and totaled it up. We got 4 million views in about a month's time. It was amazing. But the truth of the matter is, we know what that truth means, right? Because we know that some of it came from Facebook, some of it came from TikTok, some of it came from YouTube. Mm-hmm. And so could I say you're going to reach 4 million people? Well, right now, if you were in here, y'all can look up at the top, you're reaching 5 whole people. At the beginning of the podcast, there were about 12 whole people in here. We've had several thousand people come in and out of here, though, right? Drop their comment and leave. At one point in time, it got up to 600 or 700, I think I saw up there. We've had people constantly in and out of here. It's ADD, we can't sit still, right? And so does the NBA get to count those views? Does Josh get to count when he watched the Spurs game and then all the things that he watched on ESPN about it? Yeah, that counts. So why shouldn't Twitter count in that? Why shouldn't TikTok count in those? So it's just that we don't all sit still anymore, right? That's the problem. We don't have appointment television. There's no reason for it.
Hey, right. Tell you what just enhances that even further is the fact that we just talked about DVR and everything. Yeah. For the really old people, like you talked about, it was TiVo when it first came out.
Right.
But when you guys DVR things right now, and I know my daughter's like that, they don't even watch all of what they DVR'd. So it's literally you're just if she DVRs a show that's 1 hour, she might actually watch 10 real minutes of that 1 hour she DVR'd.
DVR is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I started watching less television after I got a DVR. I think I got my first DVR in 2004, I want to say. And I remember Katie was like, why do we need a DVR? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And now, of course, we can't, live without it. So I literally record everything, all basketball games, every playoff game I've DVR'd. And I'll start watching it, and if it gets up to a 10-point game, I'll just hit fast forward and just watch the score. And if it doesn't get any closer, I'll be done watching that game in 4 minutes.
And see, it started to just be something to erase commercials, but our society has progressed to a point where it's just if I'm not interested in what's going on, it's a microcosm of what you even talked about. If I can find the best 1 minute clip of a game on Twitter, I'm just as informed as somebody that watched the whole thing.
That's right.
Well,
yeah, I fast forward through free throws, through timeouts that don't go to commercial break. It's not just about the commercials for me. It's about trying to see how quickly I can watch a game and get everything from it that I need. Yep.
I'm a huge fan of the English Premier League, and there's no way I can watch that. I have to get up at 6 a.m. sometimes on Saturday morning to watch my game, right? And that's when it starts. That means if I'm going to shower beforehand, I got to get up even earlier to watch a game. There's just no way I can do it. But I can. And you guys are sitting there on Twitter at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. when you actually crawl out of bed on Saturday going, I don't care about this crap. Why is it trending? Like, it's because I'm trending it. Like, I'm sitting there tweeting about it, right, while it's happening live. So, and that's a thing. I probably wouldn't have ever gotten into it had I not had that level of access. Somebody in the comments mentioned streaming services. That's where I watch all of it. It's not like I've got a regular TV channel. I don't even know if those exist anymore. I remember we all had to buy boxes for our old TVs, but it's all on streaming now. So that's what I do. That's what I watch.
Absolutely. So Ja Morant, anybody listening, watching with us, ever heard of Ja Morant? He couldn't have done the same thing twice.
He's famous on social media. Speaking of that media fragmentation, he's real popular on Instagram, what I hear.
It's time for him to come out and say, like Charles Barkley, I'm not a role model.
Yeah.
Kids, don't watch what I do.
Mm-hmm. I think Nike's about to say that to him too.
Say again?
I think Nike's about to say that to him too.
But
this guy was mad because some teenage boy said that he did something in a pickup game, which Ja says he didn't do. And Ja said, if something bad happens to me and I'm not all NBA because my image has been tarnished or whatever, I'm going to go after that kid. And it's like, why don't you worry about the things that you're doing that are recorded in cars, at strip clubs? Like, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And there's some people that are saying, but he hasn't done anything wrong. He has a license to carry a gun and he can do whatever he wants. But what are your thoughts on that? But at
the end of the day, Ja Morant represents a brand. Because think of it this way, like Nike is paying him hundreds of millions of dollars to be an ambassador of their product. He's been made the franchise of the Grizzlies to be an ambassador of their on and off the court product, right? And so therefore, somebody that's willing to be that ignorant, it's a hard sell to let that be the face of your program or to let that be the face of what's taking your brand forward in the basketball world. And so, like I said, unless you're trying to do a remake of Don't Be a Menace Part 2 and you're starring as Loke Dog, this is just not a good idea. Right. And then you even look at it, you're on some other dude's social media that's getting like 115 people to watch it at that time, and you thought it was a good idea to do what the Grizzlies expressly told you not to do.
The thing is, it's like you said, it's about building a brand, right? For the brand, I think, is a Pat McAfee line that he always likes to use, right? For the brand. But you have to consider that everything you do is your stock, right? And, whereas you're doing okay today, right, in the NBA, tomorrow what happens if say, you're not good enough to be a starter anymore, you tweaked your ankle, you're not as fast as you used to be. Well, now I have to consider drama, plus you're a backup now, right? And it just seems like, I can take another guy that's trying to become a starter, right? That's not on his way out the door, that's pushing himself, and put him in your place, right? And I don't have to pay him as much because he obviously doesn't think he can get away with everything, and like, I don't think these athletes, there's a lot of athletes across multiple sports that's what it turns into, is that they have a terrible brand image and then they can't back it up on the court. Because you are as good as you are on the court. I will deal with any of your drama. Hey, guys, we all loved Dennis Rodman and his drama. Yep. We all loved it. But he backed it up.
Yes.
You know, he backed it up on the court, and we just said, hey, if you do that, you can do whatever you want to do. And there's truth to that. Your brand will survive. But whenever your brand can't survive anymore, there's going to be some guy that's willing to work a little bit harder to build their brand and their success story on the wake of your absent-mindedness or ignorance.
Yeah, and they're going to be willing to be accountable, which is the biggest word, which is the biggest void that we see right now in young people and particularly superstars. Is there's just this, and we've been talking about it for several episodes here now. There's just this blatant unwillingness to carry the mantle of accountability. And if you're going to have brands that are going to pay you hundreds of millions of dollars, then that's the most basic expectation, is to you be accountable.
That's right. Yeah, we're talking to you, Christian Brown. Is that who we're talking to right now?
Exactly. What happened with Christian Brown?
Oh man.
Christian Brown, I believe it was his first day on the job. He decided to park in the owner's parking spot, which he has three parking spots. And Christian Brown decided to spread his car amongst those 3 spots. So he was fined, I want to say $15,000. And he basically said, yes, Christian from the Miami Nuggets. He said, how can you fine me $15,000? I haven't even gotten a paycheck yet. And, I shot this to Drew. And Drew, give me your thoughts on what Christian Brown did and how he should have been held accountable.
Okay, so first off, I have questions because, obviously the news media is painting this out to be something different than what it is. It's painting out that Christian Brown has to pay $15,000 to the billionaire that owns the team, right? Well, that's not the story, because I want to know something that the news media is not telling us, because I think we're getting a half-truth here. 1, did he know it was the owner's parking places? Right? Was it clearly marked, or did he just have to guess? He was new, right? 2, were there team rules that he knew about to not park there? Because in the news article, it said, I was only parked there for a few minutes, is what he pleaded to. Well, if he knew that he was parked there, that's admission of guilt, right? I was only parked there for a few minutes, and you came out and moved your car? So that leads me to number 3. Was there a rule, and he didn't understand that there was a fine behind the rule because he was given a book of team rules that he didn't read? Because I think that probably would be the case as to, hey, here is the fine for parking it's $5,000, right? And he parked in all 3 of them, so that's how it ended up being.
So yeah, that's a whole nother thing right there too. Is what made you think it was a good idea to park in 3 spots?
Right. And there is the final point that the news media definitely missed out on in the big thing. Me personally, if Andrew Tolbert was to go downtown and park in 3 parking places, I would go out there and I would have a fine on my windshield from the city. Because,
and probably a boot.
Yeah. Because that's illegal. Everywhere you go, you can't park in 3 parking places.
You probably get in a fight if it's a grocery store.
Why was there not a multiplier, right? Like we needed to go, instead of 5,000, it was 5,000 for your first offense, 10,000, then 20,000, right? So he should have been fined $45,000 or $35,000. Sorry, I'm bad with math there. $35,000, in my opinion, for taking up 3 parking places and parking like a jerk. But in all seriousness, that's my question: is did he know the rules? Like, should he have known the rules? If he should have known the rules, whether it's from the fact that he didn't know it or not, I think the fine should have stand. Now, it got reduced. What was the total? $2,500, I think, was the total fine.
Yeah.
So it got reduced or whatever. It leads me to believe that, they met in the middle or whatever. But still, I'm questioning it. You know, I mean, and we got to think like, what's this cat making a year? Like, it sounds $25,000 or $2,500 fine for him might be like a $25 fine for me.
Mhm.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I
Like,
think he was like what the 17th, 18th pick. So
Yes.
he's making over $1 million a year for sure.
There's
yeah.
no question.
Yep.
I mean, I mean, at least probably a couple million a year, actually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's flip back to John Morant here real fast.
Uh huh.
Rod, how many games do you think he should be suspended, or what do you think his fate should be?
Well, he got suspended 8 games for doing it last year, which that was a
You
big
mean 2
appeal
months
to
ago?
even get it down to 8 games.
Wasn't that just like 2 months ago that he did it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You being a repeat offender for this, I think he should miss at least a third of the season.
Third of the season.
I mean, because think about it this way. Like you said, this is like we don't even have 90 days between this happening again. This isn't one of those situations where it was like a hard foul in the game and it's like your third hard foul. And so we've got to suspend you. And oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Showing up on social media with a gun after they told you to not show up on social media with a gun, like 60 days prior to that, is about as blatant and as intentional as you could possibly be.
That's right.
So I mean, it's a complete thumb in the eye to accountability.
That's right. What are your thoughts, Drew?
Escalation, just like I said with the parking fine. You know, you do it one time if you're suspended. Did you say 8 games? Is that what you said?
You got 8 games at the this season.
If you're suspended for that, let's double it and move on. Right, 16 games. You know, it doesn't matter the rule. Like that's what I don't understand about these guys. Like, it does not matter the rule. If you break the rule, like you're getting paid to play a game. Right? And if I give you the dumbest rule, if I say do not chew bubble gum in public or I'm going to suspend you for a game and I catch you chewing bubble gum in public 6 times in a row, I can kick you off my team. Like that should be allowed. You know, there should be that point of escalation. It's no different than, you know, wearing a hat in school, right? You know, we knew that hats weren't allowed in school.
Mm-hmm.
You wore it one time, what happened? The teacher walked by and knocked it off your head, right? Called you a dummy. Right? Mm-hmm. You wore it 2 times, you got sent to the principal's office. You know, it's no different with these guys. You're getting paid to play a game. I get it. It's multi-million-dollars. You're a millionaire, whatever. Well, guess what? Take your money and go play at a different league, right? That's going to pay you the same. Oh, yeah, that's right. There's not one. Follow the rules. That's all you got to do.
It's real simple.
Play the game, and you're going to be done. Your career's not even that long. Like, make a name for yourself and then go do all your stupid stuff after the game's over with. You can wait 10 years, I promise.
But he signed a 5-year, $150 million contract before the season started?
Yeah, at least.
Insane. Yeah, he was eligible for the rookie max extension. So that means that he re-ups again at what, like 26, 27 years old?
Yes.
I mean, you have so much financial future ahead of you, Ja. Come on, man.
But it really
stupid stuff like this.
But it really goes into just something that's just prevalent, period, right now. If you look at let's even look at an NBA game. Like, you got guys that it's a flagrant foul and they're running to the referee like, what are you talking about? It wasn't a foul. You know, like that. I mean, that's what we're dealing with accountability. You guys know my daughter's in the AAU world, and we're at a point here now where there's just like terrible like offenses happening with players in games, and they're like 13, 14, 15 years old, and it's not their fault. It's the referee's fault. It's the coach's fault because he had me in. I clotheslined the girl going to the basket because the coach had me in a terrible defense and so or a terrible offensive set, and so the girl stole the ball, and so that's why I did it. Like, that's the but it's a trickle down effect. It starts with guys like Ja Morant or with Christian Brown who feel like that I shouldn't have to play by the same rules as everybody else. Whatever I want to do, I should be able to do it. And so nothing's ever my fault. And so it's a trickle down effect now, because whether you're in a high school game or even an elementary game at this point, or even if your kids at school or wherever you may be, like nothing is, or even in the news media, nothing is ever my fault. There's always a reason behind it, and so it's, we look at it and we're just like, it's just simple to follow the rules. They look at it as, why should I have to follow any rules?
That's right. That's exactly right. And this isn't new. It's just magnified. I remember hearing a story about one of Drew's probably favorite pitchers for the Atlanta Braves. Tom Glavine went to the Cheesecake Factory in Buckhead. Walked into the Cheesecake Factory, and what do you think was at the Cheesecake Factory? A long line, like always, right? So he's there with his family and says, how many people are in his party? And they say, okay, that's going to be an hour wait. And he said, do you know who I am? I'm Tom Glavine of the Atlanta Braves. And that was probably in like the early 90s, So I think things now are just magnified. This accountability is just magnified so much because everybody's life is public. And obviously some things are worse than what Tom Glavine did, John Morant, obviously, but this is nothing new as far as athletes feeling that they're above the law, above the rules. Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Jose Canseco, Jeff Bagwell, these guys that were doing steroids, Rafael Palmeiro saying he didn't do steroids. Mark McGuire saying he didn't do steroids. I mean, it's gone on for so long. It's really disappointing.
Well, it's funny because there is a certain level of escalation that we get because we do get into everybody's lives. Like, we know what everybody's doing. I mean, we even know what celebrities are doing, right? They post something and we see it and it's like, oh, let's all flock there, right? That's a thing that happens now. But the big thing that these celebrities, they have to kind of, be given a little bit of a pass on is because it started when they were so young. Like Rod was saying in AAU, he sees it, with things like that. And even me as a spectator, I'm guilty of it too. Like, the best example, right, is the example of the pass interference call, in the Chiefs and Eagles game, right? The Super Bowl. Rod and I don't know if Rod's still sticking to his guns, but I am. It wasn't pass interference, right? It was called pass interference. The guy that did it said it was pass interference. I can't go back and say it wasn't pass interference. You know why I can't go back and say it was pass interference? Or it wasn't pass interference, or was, rather. Is because I've already said it. I can't go back on that. And if that was my kid that I'm watching that just did the pass interference, and I said, that wasn't pass interference, I'm going to take my anger out on the ref, right? Completely blow him up, especially if it's, any arena that I'm in, save, some giant one probably in a foreign country. You can hear me. Literally, there are episodes of the WWE that you can hear me from almost the upper deck yelling. You can literally hear me in the recording. That's how loud I am. So you think that a ref at a Pee Wee football game is not going to hear me? Oh, they're going to hear me all right. And they're going to hear me chew them out, right? I'm going to be yelling. And my son didn't do anything, right? They didn't do anything. And then what's going to happen? They're going to grow up. And they're gonna live their life going, I didn't do anything, and they're gonna be famous one day. And they're gonna go through life going, I didn't do anything wrong. And the best part about it is now we have social media and we have all these news sources that are gonna say it was the big bad billionaire that was finding this poor new guy for parking in a parking place. I don't know. He said it wasn't pass interference, but I kind of thought, or he said it was pass interference, but I kind of thought it wasn't, right? everybody's going to take their side of the story and they're going to publish it out there. So if you want to get away with it, you can get away with it. And there's a lot of people out there that are dirty that want to get away with it. And again, it starts young, very, very young.
True.
That's for sure. Well, all right, y'all. You ready for some Uncle Joe trivia answers?
Tell them.
Yes. So the first question was, LeBron James is playing in his 12th conference finals between the Heat, the Lakers, and the Cavs. He's been in 12 conference finals, now playing against the Nuggets, and he is 10-1 in those. He lost to one team, and that team was the 2009 Orlando Magic.
Right.
Yes.
Dwight Howard, Hedo Turkoglu.
That's right. Exactly. Oh man, the big forward for Rashard Lewis.
Yes.
Yeah, he was our big signing from Seattle. And then of course we went on to lose to the Lakers in the finals that year, which we'll be talking about in later podcasts, of course. The second question was, there have been, I don't even know how many teams there are in the NFL. What is it, 32?
32.
32 teams, and 31 of those 32 teams have had a 4,000-yard passer. And one Christopher John answered it correctly at the very beginning of the show.
Yes, he did.
That was the Bears.
The Bears.
Exactly right. The Bears. Mitchell
Heavy run
Trubisky
game.
was not the answer, and now he's a Steelers headache.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you look at some of their draft picks for quarterbacks over time, you can see why that happens.
Heavy run game, guys. Heavy run game. Awesome run game from the Bears. That's what it is. That's all it is.
Yes. All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up for the evening. We apologize, Facebook people. If you normally watch us live on Facebook, we had some technical difficulties. If you're listening to us where you do otherwise, then you don't know anything. But we had some technical difficulties today, and we persevered, right? We were accountable to giving our listeners the same show that we give them every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock or so. So we did it. Call us Chick-fil-A of podcasts. You know, we're gonna show up, and it's gonna be the same show regardless of where you're finding it, where you're hearing it, what day it is, whatever the case is. So, and that's what we're going to bring our listeners every single week. It's raw every week. You know, we may do a little bit of preparing, but we know our topics. But for the most part, this is, I don't want to say Barstool, right? I might get fined by Penn Media or whoever owns Barstool now. But that's basically what we are. Just three guys talking sports, enjoy sports, love them, and know a little bit as well. But we always want feedback from our listeners. You know, tell us how we're doing. Send us a DM. Let us know what you want to see different with the show, because we're going to bring it every week. Whether we have a guest, which we've had a lot of different guests, actually hit up an old friend of mine from high school this week. So if you're listening, you know who I'm talking to. So respond to my message. But until next Tuesday, who knows? We may have a guest, we may not. We'll let y'all know on Facebook. Drew will shout it out on the other social media outlets. And until then, unless y'all have something, let's get out of here.